And welcome to this week's Artist on Art. I am your host, Natalie McKeever, and I have the great pleasure of speaking with Natalie McKeever, who's here in the KZSU studios talking with us live. Natalie is a multimedia artist, performance, sculpture, video. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Natalie.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is great. Natalie is in the continuing of our series of DANMites that are graduating. That's the Digital Arts and New Media MFA graduates that are happening this spring and having a great exhibition that's going to be happening April 28th at the Dark. Natalie McKeever is on her way out the door, kind of, yeah?
Almost.
So Natalie does some really interesting work. Would you say a lot of your experiences with video, huh?
Yeah, mostly video. That was what my concentration in undergrad was. And then through the DANM program, I've been branching out into more installation, electronics, that kind of stuff.
And so Natalie is here to talk with us about her installation. It's a two-part installation that will be a part of the exhibition called I've Got What's on Your Mind.
Something on your mind.
Something on your mind. I know what it is. And it's called Internal Worlds. And it's using abstract video projection and interactive components such as a helmet type.
I'm calling it kind of a pod or a helmet.
Headdress.
Yeah.
That covers your face. And Internal Worlds senses our bodies, so we're affecting the work. This is the beauty of interactivity.
Yeah.
Now, what's really interesting about your work, Natalie, is that you're using the person's pulse. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Internal Worlds.
Okay, so it's a two-part installation, and one of the parts is a interactive component. So it's the pod, like you were talking about, and it uses a pulse sensor. So it's an ambient light sensor and an LED, and it senses the participant's pulse. And then what I've created is a helmet that is filled with LEDs, two sets of LEDs, and one of the sets responds to the person's pulse, so it blinks in time with your internal rhythm. And then after a moment, it starts playing back at different rates. So at first you're just experiencing your own pulse, and then you're experiencing your pulse as the rate of a different animal, a different species, and you'll see the two competing pulses blinking in front of you.
And you're using LED, like a whole surface of LEDs. How many LEDs are you?
Let's see. I've
been counted
them all individually, but it's a couple hundred.
Hundred that you have hand soldered yourself. And what's interesting is you're not in the mechatronics group.
No.
You're in the Performative Technologies.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Natalie McKeever, and you are listening to KZSC. I am your host for Artist on Art, Natalie McKeever. And Natalie is a multimedia artist who is doing a project called Internal Worlds. And so again, it's a two-part installation. So the first part is, let's talk about the environment. How about that?
So it sets up an atmosphere for the viewer. So you walk into this circular projection screen area, and I'm thinking of incorporating some fog in there too, so that the light of the projection will be kind of carried out into a sculptural form. So you walk into this environment, and it has just a simple projection of white light, but it's being projected at different rhythms, so it'll fade and brighten at the rhythm of the Earth's light changes, and then it also moves at the rate of different circadian rhythms of species.
Keep talking.
So you'll get the idea that it's a rhythm, that there might be something biological about it, but it's just sort of very simple, simplistic white light. And what I was hoping to mimic were these vision experiments that were done. So it's kind of basing off of that, the Ganzfeld vision experiments, which were just an exploration into what pure vision was. So they used white light and kind of sensory deprivation. But what happened at these experiments were people kind of saw these foggy movements. It was just kind of movement of fog throughout in front of them, and they started to feel kind of pulled away from their bodies. So the first component of my installation, I'm trying to mimic that feeling of being sort of pulled out of your body or just concentrated into your sort of thought process. And then after you sort of experience that projection, you go into the pod, kind of a one-at-a-time participatory sculpture.
Interactive sculpture.
Interactive. And that's when you sort of start to really concentrate on your body and how that affects your mind.
So you walk into it's a site installation. It's a site specific. Well, it's more than site specific. It's an actual installation of a. How big is the wall? How high does it go?
I'm think about 10 feet. Yeah,
10
I want
feet
it to be larger than body scale.
And this is, again, Natalie McKeever talking about her project, Internal Worlds, that you will be able to not only experience, but also get to wear, affect, exactly, as a part of the Digital Arts and New Media MFA Graduating Exhibition. It's a yearly event. It's some of the best art you're going to find in Santa Cruz. And it opens April 28th, and it runs April 28th through 29th, and then May 3rd through 6th. And then the big reception, everybody, write this down on your calendar. May 4th, between 5:30 and 8:30, will be the mega fun reception. It was completely packed last year. It was like people were falling off the terraces, and the gallery hours for those dates are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and all of this is located at the Digital Arts and Research Center. That's the DARC. That's right by the music building and the art buildings. Natalie, do you know where your internal worlds will be in the dark?
I'm in the dark lab at the dark. So the DARK at the DARC.
The DRAK at the DARC, and that's like as soon as you walk in.
The sort of theater space. It's the first thing that you walk into.
And so, do you have that whole space?
No, I'm sharing it with Emily, who's also doing a biofeedback kind of piece, and then Alexei,
who we had on last week. It was really fun. Game designer. So Natalie McKeever is doing this project called Internal Worlds. It's a two-part installation. You walk into a room, you see foggy white lights that are pulsing. There's a linear pulse to it.
Yeah, there'll be sort of like a graphical rhythm to the movement of the light, and they'll be dimming and fading. And so you're thinking that people are going to have this disembodied feeling? Yeah, so just sort of being taken into your thought through this rhythm and this movement, and sort of the lack of signifiers. So it's just this plain old white light. And so your mind has to figure it out. It has to do something with this. And we know that our minds love to analyze and make some kind of something that relates to what they're experiencing, what our minds are experiencing. And so we talked before the radio show. This reminded me of another artist's work. Would you mind talking? Olafur Eliasson, you were saying. He also does sort of large projections, and he's also someone that deals with human perception as kind of his main theme, which is something that I'm interested in as well. How we perceive. Yeah, how the individual perceives the world around them, and just sort of analyzing those. I guess he sort of analyzes the more scientific process behind them, and a lot of his pieces are named kind of your color, your yellow room, that kind of thing. So he makes them personal, even though they're just about color. Right. And so, Natalie, you were looking at him when you were thinking of this project? He's someone that I've sort of had in mind for a while. I really like his work. And I think I'm in the same conversation of thinking about human perception in that way. And would you mind just talking us a little bit about the visual experiments that you were describing at the very beginning of our interview? Who are these experiments done by, and when was this done? Well, I was reading Brian Masumi's book, and he has a book, The Parables of the Virtual, and one of the things he was talking about was trying to get after what pure vision was. So this was an experiment. They're called the Ganzfeld Experiments. And this Ganzfeld, I guess, was trying to get after what pure vision was. So his experiment that he set up was he would pulse white light, just pure white light, into a participant's eyes, and it would have static playing. So it's kind of like a sensory deprivation. And then what I'm interested in are sort of like the visual after effects of that. So people would feel movement. They would see fog and white and things like that. So my installation, the projection sort of mimics the after effects of those experiments.
How far is the diameter? How far across is this wall?
Let's see. I was going to make it about 28-foot circumference, so it's large.
And it'll be pulsing, and it'll pulse at different rhythms, or will there be several rhythms?
I think at this stage it's going to go through different cycles. So you might see it's sort of mostly focusing on like circadian rhythms. So we have this sort of outer sphere that I'm creating of like the Earth's circadian rhythms and your body rhythms. And then when you go into the next stage, it's more about those autonomic processes and those internal rhythms that go on. So it's sort of different layers experienced throughout.
And so you'll be then, there'll be a really comfortable chair.
Yeah, I got a chaise lounge.
In the middle of this circular space, and you'll put the pod on your head, and you lay back. And how is it that the pod is sensing your pulse rate?
It's it's called a pulse sensor, and so it uses an ambient light sensor and an LED, and you can place it up to your wrist, and it just senses when blood goes through your vein, it blocks the light, and so that gets sensed by the pulse sensor, and so that data gets brought into the computer, or the Arduino in this case, which I'm using, and so every time the light is blocked, that's the beat of your heart, and I can use that data to then play back the LEDs at that same rate.
And is the LED sensor or the pulse sensor going to be in the armrest?
So it'll just be, you place your arm on the sort of armrest there, and then it'll play back for you.
And this will be ever-changing colors?
It'll have two sort of sets of LEDs. So the one is a constant kind of yellow light, and that's your own pulse. So playing back at your real-time rate that's going on. And then there's another set of RGB LEDs that cycle through different colors, and that is I'm collecting the data of your heartbeat and then playing your actual sound of your heart back at different rates of different species. So it'll play back at like the rate of a horse, which is about 30 beats per minute, the rate of a cat, which is like 150. So it'll cycle through these different species, and you'll get to experience what it feels like to experience that biorhythm of another species in that way.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Natalie McKeever, this sounds like a really interesting art piece. How did you come up with the idea? I mean, it sounds like a pretty evolved idea.
Well, I sort of had been making, I think my videos sort of concentrated on thought. A lot of my video work from undergrad was getting people into a meditative state of mind, sort of a hypnotic state of mind, and focusing on how thought kind of forms the self. And then I just became more interested in how the body started forming yourself and how your body and your thoughts are interconnected. So I wanted to sort of set up an experiment where you could externalize that internal bodily process and see how it affected your mind.
And you are going into your beta testing?
Pretty soon, hopefully. Knock on wood. Yeah, I think I'm getting pretty close to a beta test. So positive thinking-wise, maybe like a week and a half, I'll be able to ask people to try on the pod and tell me what they think.
Right. And see if, I don't know, could it be discomforting to have a kind of effect by the pulse rate of a cat?
Yeah, I think, and that's part of it. I want there to be a little bit of anxiety. It's going to have beauty to it with the light, but it's also going to be anxiety producing. And, your heart is familiar. Everyone knows what that's going to sound like, and they're sort of expecting that rhythm to happen. But when it's thrown off by kind of like an alien rhythm, strange yet familiar, it's going to have a little sense of the uncanny to it. But I think when I've been reading about like Sublime Theory, that's part of it. It's beautiful, but it's also anxiety producing.
Sublime Theory, would you mind giving us just a quickie on that? Because that was something we talked a lot about when I was studying in digital arts and new media, and it's a little bit hard to grasp. But what do you think, Natalie?
The main thing is that it's kind of these moments that are outside of the normal human faculty of knowledge. So it's like a moment of realization that maybe a sense of infinity or something that's like beyond your scale, beyond your mental faculties, and they're sort of fleeting moments.
Deja vu kind of thing.
Yeah, and kind of, I think the good visual of it is that Caspar David Friedrich painting, The Monk in the Sea. So it's this tiny diminutive man just like standing up against the ocean, and that sort of scale and that sort of psychological moment is happening.
Right, right. And so the theory of the sublime, Natalie McKeever has been talking about her internal worlds, a 2-part installation using abstract video projection and an interactive component, a pod kind of big old helmet thing that you put on, and you get to experience not only your heart rate, but other species' heart rates. Now, you were mentioning the horse's heart rate is at 30 beats per minute. Is that what's the human?
The human, I think an average is about 70.
70.
So yeah.
So would the horse? This is what you're going to find out. Is the horse going to make me feel more relaxed?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the cat's going to make me feel all jumpy.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole idea. I don't know if you've thought of this, Natalie, but heartbeats, when they get close to one another, cells will start beating together, even if they have different heartbeats. Like, each one of our heart cells
they adjust.
it adjusts. And so I can't help but wonder if this information that's being kind of projected into your sight, into your being in a way.
Yeah, I'm hoping to create that kind of feedback loop where, you're giving me data, I'm giving you something back, and it'll hopefully affect that heartbeat that'll then cycle back into it. So,
and I think it's important to also talk about how immersive it is to be wearing a helmet.
A singular experience, and the lights are only visible from the inside, so it's only you that are experiencing it. And yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to work with like other species' heartbeats was just that idea of becoming with that Donna Haraway talks about. So the idea of kind of trying to examine the self, like the self is too close, so looking outward at another species, and then you can understand more about like how that human structure affects your mind.
Right. Oh, I love it. And you're going to love it too when you go see it on April 28th and 29th, and then May 3rd through 6th. Reception date is Friday, May 4th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. and gallery hours are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. All of this will be located at the DARC, DARC, that is the Digital Arts Research Center, and Natalie McKeever's internal world will be in the DARC, DARK, which is on the first floor. As soon as you walk into the building, you go straight ahead and you'll be able to enter your internal world.
Yeah, be enticed by the fog coming out of there, hopefully.
So Natalie, one of the things about the Digital Arts and New Media program is that not only do you do your own project, which you write your thesis about, but you also are in project groups.
Yeah.
And your project group was Performative Technologies, which, do you want to just explain what the heck that means?
Yeah, so Performative Technologies, it works with the theater department at UC Santa Cruz. So we collaborated with Jim Bierman, David Cuthbert, and Kate Edmonds, who are theater professors. And in the past, they'd done actual productions and shows, but then they were working with Helen Park and myself, who were both video artists, and so we kind of wanted to do more of a video installation. So we did a project called Architectures of Memory for our Performative Technologies project.
And this is, again, called Architectures of Memory, which is a site-specific video installation at Mitchell's Cove?
Yeah, Mitchell's Cove. It's kind of like the dog park cove.
Where is that?
It's on Westcliff and Sunset, and it's one of the dog beaches in town.
Oh, you already did it, though.
Yeah, we already did it. It was it was in October.
Okay. And it explored poetics, construction, and erosion of human memory. I think I was doing an installation that night, and I didn't get to see it.
Oh, yeah, it was also same day as the Ma.
Friday. Yeah. Tell us just a quickie about what that was. And you did this again with another
with
DANMite.
Helen Park.
Helen Park will be on the show in a couple weeks. Architectures of memory.
Yeah, so we wanted to do, our main thing that we came to the table with was we wanted to do a site-specific, like an outdoor video installation. And then we were both interested in the idea of memory and visualizing memory. So we came to the table with those two ideas and found this site, Mitchell's Cove, and it had this one rock in the middle that kind of looked like a profile, and it just kind of... It had part of an old dock there, and it just kind of looked like ancient ruins were in this site. So it felt perfect for the idea of exploring kind of human memory and how that erodes. So we found our site, and then we surveyed people about. We were mostly interested in the really specific visuals of memory, so how memories actually look as they exist as a memory. And so we would ask people, what does it feel like to move through it? Is it clear? Is it foggy? Things like that. So we surveyed people about their sort of memories they wouldn't want to lose, kind of extremes of memory, happiest, saddest. And then we visualized those through video, and then we had 3 channels. So there was one channel of those memories playing out, and then sort of a character on the profile rock that was thinking about their memory, and then the text about the memory was on the waves. Mm-hmm.
And what did you find most people, what was the kind of data that you conclusion?
Most people, let's see, we got a pretty even amount of like happy and sad kind of memories together, but yeah, there seems to be, they're foggy, they overlap, they're non-linear. A lot of things were feelings were really strong, but not visuals. So we would get back, like people would have a real, just a strong memory of that visceral reaction, but not so much real visuals that we could use. But we still worked with that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And was that project group came together with, how did the idea come together?
Just brainstorming together. So yeah, we both knew we wanted to work with memory, and then it just kept evolving from there. So once we found that site, it was kind of like we knew we wanted one channel with a face, and then the memories playing out behind them, and it just kind of evolved.
Was there any video capture of this?
Yeah, we are just putting the finishing touches on the documentation video, so hopefully as soon as we can get it up online, it will be there.
And where will we be able to find that, Natalie?
Well, I think that the DANM website will put it up, but it'll also be on my portfolio website, which is just my name.com, nataliemckeever.com.
NATALIE MCKEEVER.com?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you got lucky. Well, Natalie, it's come to an end.
Okay.
It's so sad. But it was great talking with you.
You too.
I really, really appreciate what you're doing, and you're really taking a scientific kind of approach to your artwork, and maybe more of a psychological.
Yeah, I think more like cognitive science kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be great.
Thanks.
I can't wait to experience it. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Artist on Art, Natalie McKeever. Please stay tuned for Gamers on Game, where I've got another DANMite, James Pollock. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get to talk about everybody's thing, but we'll do that next time.
Okay.
Thanks a lot,
James
Natalie. Thanks for coming on,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for listening, and please stay tuned.